You ever get a call from a good buddy that you like to do work for, and they say that they have a friend that's got a job for me that would be absolutely perfect? And I say, sure, let me hear it. What do you got? And he says, I've got a turbo that needs a V-band welded onto it. And I said, okay, sounds good. And he said, don't worry, everything's going to be cut, everything's going to be ready and prepped, ready to go. And all you got to do is just slap it on, weld it. I was like, highly doubtful, but okay. And I asked him, what is the material? He paused for a second. And in that pause, I kind of laughed to myself because I knew what he was going to say. And then he said it, cast aluminum. And I thought, well, let's give it a shot and see what happens. So let's get into it.
So here's the cast aluminum turbo and V-band, and the cut actually really wasn't too bad. Seemed to be pretty straight, but the prep work was a little lacking. Not really sure if he was just using a cutoff wheel or a hard wheel or what, but yeah, we're gonna have to clean this up and we'll show you how I do that. And this V-band, well, yeah. I don't know why anyone would think this is clean and ready to weld. But, you know, is what it is. This is what you get from time to time. And when you get something like that, this is my best friend. An ultrasonic cleaner can be extremely handy to have around in your shop. And I know I've mentioned this one before in the past. This Milwaukee 90 degree grinder I've had for a little while now, and I actually recorded this a while ago, so I've had this grinder for quite a long time since then, and it's actually really nice. It's got a nice LED light down at the bottom to help light the way a little bit, but I'm using this grinder to kind of even up the top and take the material down to bright shiny aluminum. And you've probably heard us talk about this before, but when you're prepping, you want to use the brown coarse Scotch-Brite pads, because if you use anything else, it can embed bad stuff into the weld and you don't, or into the joint, and you don't want that. So here I'm using just a die grinder with, I'm not sure what type of a wheel that is, what it's called officially, but that looks a lot better. It's a lot more even, a lot cleaner. It's got a nice little bevel on it. And while I was prepping that, the water heated up, so we dropped the V-band in there and turn her on. Just let her run. For this part, I thought it'd be interesting to use 357 filler wire, which is a very commonly used filler wire in the aerospace industry for cast aluminum repairs. So here's a comparison between 4043 filler wire and the 357 filler wire. I recorded this a long time ago, so I don't remember the exact settings that I was using at the time, but everything is flowing nice and smooth with this 4043 filler wire. Nothing really different, just regular good old bead. The only thing is, you can see there's a little bit of a haze to this weld, which is gas settings and balance settings. And here you can see I'm using the 357 filler wire, and if you look closely, you can see the edges freeze up a little bit faster than the 4043, so it stands up a little bit more. I didn't change any settings on the machine for this. The only thing that changed was the filler wire in my hands, and this flows very nicely. As you can see, it shines up a little bit more with the same settings as 4043, This filler wire is a little bit on the pricey side, but if you do a lot of cast aluminum, it's pretty handy to have in the shop. So while we were doing that, this was running in the ultrasonic cleaner for a good while, the V-band, and you can see all the crud that's in the water and everything. So it did work. It did shake off a lot of stuff, and I just ran regular water. I didn't put any like soap or any kind of detergents or anything in there. It definitely loosened things up, so you can get it off a little bit harder or get it off a little easier, but still pretty dirty. And I also noticed a couple good cracks in this V-band that you really could kind of see, but not really when it was super dirty. So I called the customer and told them about it and sent them some pictures, and they said, roll with it. I was like, okay. After the ultrasonic cleaner, like I said, it kind of loosened everything up, but still needed to wire brush this thing off real good because, man, it was dirty. As you can see, this is just, it was bad. So we're trying to clean it up the best we can to make this look the best and weld the best. And I'll be 100% honest, this was pretty sketchy. I wouldn't recommend this, but you know, sometimes you kind of just got to do what you got to do. And the DeWalt die grinders like that, they are very, very handy to have around your shop. I highly recommend having one. And if you end up getting one of these or any of the M12 Milwaukee grinders, I would highly recommend upgrading the battery because, man, it makes a big difference. So here, doing the same thing, putting a nice little bevel on this V-band, and then switching back over to the Scotch-Brite pad. Again, the brown coarse Scotch-Brite always for weld prep. The blues and the maroon pads, those are great for post welding if you're doing a polishing or whatever. Those are what those are meant for. So now that we got this thing all cleaned up, that looks a lot better. Not great, not perfect, but way better than it was when I got it, for sure. I cannot stand grinding dust, so whenever I'm done grinding, I generally will clean up a little bit and vacuum, and I also kind of use this time to think about what I'm going to do, how I'm going to do this part, and something occurred to me that I wanted to check with this. I wanted to make sure it wasn't actually magnesium. So you use white vinegar and just put a dot on it. I put it on the turbo part also just to make sure, because the way those things were corroded, it really made me question, because it kind of looked like the way magnesium can be kind of cruddy and stuff. But if the white vinegar stays clear, it's aluminum, and if it turns cloudy, it's magnesium. So it's a really, really simple, easy test you can do to make sure you're working with the right stuff. So now we're going to get into the good stuff of welding, and that 90-degree block is a machinist square. It is a wonderful thing to have around. If you notice, when I put that V-band on, I tried to keep the seam together just to make it look nicer. I'm not sure if it really matters or not, but to me, I think it looks good, and I think it makes it look a little bit more professional. So we're just going to throw a couple tacks on here. And remember, I'm using 357 filler wire. I put a block on the top, that Fireball 123 block, just has a little bit of weight to keep that thing from pulling up and down. And sometimes when you're tacking stuff, you really have to be careful what's going on, because it can really pull your part way out of square, or you can pull your part completely in the wrong spot. So you just put some weight on it if you can, and it helps. And guess what? I'm sure you saw that too. It happens. So the best thing you can do when that happens, when you dip your tungsten, is admit to yourself that it happened and then move on. Do what's right, clean it up, get some wire brushes, clean that all off, clean it up good, get all that soot out of there. Now you know if you dipped your tungsten, you saw it, do the right thing, flip the tungsten around, put another piece of tungsten in, a new good clean piece of tungsten. Everything will flow so much nicer, everything will weld so much better. And if you have a whole box of tungsten, sharpen them all. There's no point in having them just sitting in the box. Use them. So we got the V-band tacked on, and now we're going to go ahead and start welding this out. And another thing people forget about, after you dip your tungsten, you want to clip the end of the wire, because that soot is on the end of the wire and you don't want to just drive that right into the puddle. So just take the time and clip it off with some side cutters of some kind, and you got nice clean fresh metal. So I only had one shot at trying to get some arc shots with this thing, so as you can see here, I'm moving up the side of this V-band and rotating the torch as you go up the joint, and you want to keep the cup somewhat pointing to the center of the axis of the round part you're working on. You can see here I'm definitely nowhere near straight up and down, which I could be a little bit higher, but taking the time to rotate your wrist really makes everything flow a lot nicer and smoother. So now we're readjusting using that block again to hold it in a new way, or hold it in a new position. And I thought this was kind of interesting that you see that seam, and as I start to weld it, it pulls closed. And I should mention, when I talked to the customer, they did not want this to be burned through. They wanted no burn through whatsoever. So I'm sinking that puddle down into that bevel so I know I'm getting good penetration into the metal, but I'm not burning through. And again, that was customer requested not to burn through. So just kind of moving forward, letting it drop down, move forward. And here's the end result. I was pretty happy with the way this turned out for being cast aluminum, and the customer was extremely happy with how this turned out. And remember, they did not want any burn through, so we were able to do that for them, and they were very happy.
Well, that's it for this cast aluminum video. Thanks for sticking with me all the way to the end of it. And hopefully you're able to learn a few different things about some 357 filler wires and just exploring the idea of using something a little bit different outside the normal 4043 and 5356. Another good cast aluminum filler wire to look into, it's a lot cheaper and relatively easier to find, is 4047. That does have a lower melting point than 4043 and 5356. So it tends to weld a little bit better for cast aluminum. But hopefully you enjoyed this video, and again, I shot this stuff a long time ago with different intentions for it, so next time I get a cast aluminum repair job, I will be diving a little bit deeper into it. I'll probably be using this 357 filler wire again, and I'll also pick up some of the 4047 to do a comparison. But if you have anything you'd like to see or things that you would like to learn about, be sure to leave it in the comments and head over to the forum here on welderskills.com. And we really appreciate everybody being here, and we'll catch you on the next video.